Hey, greetings everybody. Welcome to another video. This coming week is going to be quite busy, so let's get into it after a quick message. First off, thank you to people who posted some comments about Elden Ring's DLC. I did it. I beat it. I beat the game. I beat the DLC. Feels good. I'm a uh, stone's throw away from platinuming that game. Got a few more endings to do, which figured out the actual way I should have been doing it, and I'm done. Just in time for Summer Games Quick Done Week, which maybe I'll talk about that later. But for now, team building. So team building this week is a little nebulous because taking a look here for some people who are wondering, this is Game 8, which is a Japanese website that I use for demoing off some of the better team compositions that are out there. And before people get too invested in this website, just a friendly reminder that while this does give some good ideas for teams, it's not always the most up to date. There is no mention of Fina or Lucielle in here yet. That'll probably change relatively quickly, and with another new character coming out, there's probably going to be a bit of a shakeup as to what is best. So for people who, tune in, and this is, maybe more accurate to closer to where global is than where JP is, and you can enjoy teams we're going to talk about today. Of course, Tier 1 is what is considered to be generally the best in the game. Tier 2 is pretty acceptable, providing that I think sometimes it can just be an outlier, a little bit of a surprise against your opponents, them not necessarily being ready for what you're about to unleash upon them. And tier 3 is considerably less, but if you're just a mid-tier player, this is probably fine to see good success. So just in case you're wondering what the tiers are. And starting off tier 1, this is the team I have been rocking for the last half a month. I have not worked Fina in yet because she's still too new. She's not 140, can't even really do that much. And I think this team is really, really good. It served me quite well in Arena for the last little bit. The most new thing in it is the VC that just came out on Global. The, what's it called? The Ice Horse Esper one. Looking across this entire thing, it's actually a very, 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 I would say, almost plain build that's gotten to number 1. Gilgamesh, not a time limited. Summer Glassy is on JP. I can't remember if she is on Global or not, but you guys know. AC Sephi, there you can see the sub jobs and everything. Thief, Axe Knight, Heavenly Burr, Burial Blade. Most everything here, while it isn't necessarily cheaply costed, is pretty obtainable by most players. And the Sephiroth VC that's in there, I mean, it's pretty good for the in-spot slot here, but it's not necessarily the thing that you need to run. You could probably run some other VCs, just any general thing that's boosting attack, Ifrit if you really want it, and still have this being really good. Combination of Curse and Frostbite. Fly Glassy is still a really, really solid tank, even being like a year ago. She's probably due for an upgrade quite quickly, which will also boost her performance. And overall, the multi-elemental of this team is quite difficult to tech against. It is just generally pretty strong. If there is a weak point to it, probably Sephiroth's offense, which isn't super great. Curse is always looking to make up for that. Yeah, this isn't a perfect one by all means, but I do think that this is one of the stronger ones. Let's also talk about some other tier 1 stuff, such as the Great Sword Party. Nothing really too much here. I think this one has been up here for a good long amount of time. This more time-limited stuff than the one we just talked about, but overall, Cloud, Thunder Astrius, and Spring June still a very, very strong comp, with a lot of synergy being 3 very strong units, Vaxing weapon type class, which means that you can run almost any VC you want. And some of the VCs are really, really great. So yeah, makes for a very, very strong comp. It's still strong, and I still believe it's absolutely strong. And last on tier 1, this is the one that I think is probably the one that's on its way out, especially with a new, potentially very strong wind character. Ashimont, like this has been kind of evading, kind of just generally strong. But I feel like this one is the one that's going to get bumped down a tier or 2, potentially, on what tomorrow looks like for JP. But this is the one that I think is just kind of so-so. Moving on to tier 2, pure ice-based party. Ice, all flavors and varieties, nothing time limited in this party except for Tactician Oldor, who's a semi-limited character, so quite still possible to get most of this stuff, although very, very high costed. But I do actually really like this one a lot. I still think this is quite good. And with Wind coming back next week, this could be even better, depending on how much Wind is. But I do think that mono element versus Rainbow is looking to be overall just much, much stronger for almost every comp. It feels like you see still single elements, but there's a lot of elemental diversity, and it feels like the strongest teams are very much job VC, just strong characters. Same general thing. I'm gonna go through this a little bit faster. If you want to pause and take a look at the equipment, there isn't anything super unrecognizable. Like checking up here, I think all of this equipment should be generally recognizable. If you have any questions, like here is, I believe that is Wind Veritas VC, counter haste. Down here with this one, we got King Bradley's TMR. But, you know, TMR is just find something that does relatively a similar thing and probably good enough. Don't have to worry too much about it, because King Bradley coming back, still looking very unlikely. All right. Next up, Mono Water. You can see that most of the tier single elemental stuff has moved down to tier 2 recently. And that, I think, is very, very accurate. It's just not as good as multi-elemental shenanigans. And then you get into some other things like this, for example, spears or fists that we're about to look at. These are just essentially like a little bit of a surprise. You know, your opponent's not necessarily expecting it. A little bit of spiciness in the mix of what teams they go up against, just not prepared for it because of what's meta. So, you know, just slightly under meta. Sometimes these teams can really steal. Volk I still think is really good. Wind Veritas is really good and really easy to build. And Lion King Eld, not a, what do I say, this limited unit. So good stuff there. And again, this strike-based parties, you can see Tifa and Bridal Alaya in there. Alphonse, although if you really were hard-pressed, probably could just switch it out with almost any good tank. Volk, although you would hope to get some VC synergy out of the VCs that are essentially on Alphonse here. And then it kind of just goes on from there about talking about different parties going down to tier 3 or whatnot. So yeah, that kind of just takes a look at it as to what is considered to be best right now. I do think that these are pretty accurate, with the exception of talking about Luciel, who seems to be just a good splash character for non-time limited events. Her healing, as well as disable for attacks, can sometimes just stall it out, win a match because of time counter and everything. That still very much holds true. The one thing that I've noted is that I think that she is a little bit better overall, at least for now, in a mostly physical based meta. She's a little bit better into just being splashed into different parties. I've seen her with Sephiroth, Earth, all kinds of different stuff, and it can be more of an annoyance. I still think that her lifespan is a little short-lived, because then we have to essentially talk about the new team that I think is really starting to make headwaves this week. which is a video. Well, I wasn't going to do this originally, but I think it would make a little bit better. So let me just pull this up very, very quickly. But essentially, it is a light and dark base party. This is the one that I think is kind of cheating on the whole elemental front, because most of the time it's like, oh, remember you say, multi-elemental rainbow is pretty good. Actually, dual element is still looking quite good. The party that Ichin really highlighted this week was these two, Sephiroth, Gilgamesh and Fina, where basically you're taking out Summer Glassy and putting in Fina instead for high healing power, long distance support, and it definitely looks strong. But the team that seems to be the standout, for me anyway, of this week, and the most noteworthy one, is this Cloud, Cypher, and Fina, which is, of course, again, like 3 very, very new characters. But because of cards like Dark Bahamut, the FF5 Human Killer Vision card, the new Speed-based Vision card on Fina, as well as Cloud's VC and Hayu card, makes for a really, really compellingly strong team that has strong heal, good outlasting other opponents' guesses, removing of their healing power without necessarily relying on curse. You're also pretty much basically immune to curse with Fina there. She also has some generally good heals. It was one of the most high-performing teams that I think I saw this week. Just going ahead, again, we don't want to bogart all of Peachin's views, so we're, giving them this one. But this is essentially one of the strongest base teams, tier 1 base team that we ended up seeing a little bit earlier. And you know what? Let's just speed it up just a bit, because I think this is a good corner case. It's also repeated, I think, towards the end of the video with a similar result. But you can see essentially setup and everything like this. Timing it across this map. Lots of buffing. Fina kind of able to start attacking already, and just some high range on the characters is pretty good. I would say that the spacing didn't work out particularly well for the other team, because as you can see, the light and dark base team is getting a little bit of advantage early on. But you can see how much Outlast is in this team. And even on a... I mean, it would be curious, of course, always to see another map. But this is one of the things, points of why I think Fina looks generally better than most people expected. She has a lot of stuff that she's capable of doing quite regularly. And very quickly with good range too. Just really, really good support. Like here you can see... didn't even really matter that much, but all 3 characters standing by the end of the battle is particularly good. Well, actually, it's great. And here's another kind of example. She isn't feeling that she can get the heal in there. She does do DPS, which is really nice, not obscured like gunners, which is always the case of why I prefer bows a little bit better, re-raise and everything like that. But you see here, so this is kind of my team to watch this week. I think that this is definitely the standout. Fina, kind of a missing piece. Cloud has kind of just been shuffling along with great swords in a generally pretty convincing good way. Cypher coming along proved that he was generally pretty good, but Fina seems to be the glue that really pushed this team even further beyond than what I thought it would happen. So yeah, this is one of those ones that, I don't think in retrospect, but people who have Cloud who are potentially maybe not super inclined to the Great Sword Party, maybe this is what you're looking at. It is pretty limited with 2 collab characters that are unlikely to return, so you would have to push that. But it is definitely looking to be tier 1 because it's capable of fighting against tier 1 parties. Of course, with the new wind character Shrekken coming next week, or sorry, in less than 24 hours, actually less than 3 hours, less than 2 hours. It'd be interesting to see how things adjust even further. See you later.